It's the Rangers Journal Night.
Evening everybody, welcome back to Rangers Journal podcast. You'll be sick of seeing my mug because I've been interviewing people about managerial candidates for the last fucking bit feels like month of my life. Joined tonight by some of Team Sexy, Mitch is in Team Twat. Ross, come to you first. How you doing, mate?
Glad I've made Team Sexy. Glad that it's because we're not getting a hair. That's what it's all about, and that's what sells
Exactly, mate. Exactly. We're bringing Sexy back. Stu, how are you, pal?
Good, mate. Good. Rested. Glad to be here.
Good. Good. Your hat's on back to front.
I know, mate. I know. I didn't realise until I seen my face on the screen there. Thank God for technology.
And representing Team Twat tonight, we've got Mitch. Mitch, how are you, pal?
How's that hairline coming along?
It's not. If all back
You got nothing to say to that?
tonight.
Got a wee joke for you, Scotty. What do they call a group of rabbits hopping backwards?
I don't know.
A receding hairline.
Alright, I
Mm.
can tell you're a Rangers star.
That's ended, Ross. Ross is done. the Ross is done for the rest of the pod.
He's gone.
2 minutes in, I've ended Ross.
Oh, Christ. Right, so we're here tonight to talk about Barry Ferguson. And we're going to do a wee kind of mini report card on him. So, Ross, I'll come to you first now you've stopped laughing. What kind of job do you think Fergie's done since stepping in?
It's been mixed. I think when he first came in, obviously, we probably all expected him to get in and boot balls and tell some home truths, which he's done, you know, and we just kind of hoped that he would just kind of give us a bit of pride back, which at the start seemed to be the case. But I think as time went on, maybe these home truths have maybe rubbed the players the wrong way. We don't know, but we kind of seem to have resorted back to type again.
Aye, definitely. In a shameless plug, Cameron, if you're interested in finding out more about Russell Martin, there's an interview with Martin Sanders that I done the other day talking about Russell Martin and whether he's going to be any good for Rangers or not, if you're interested. Another thanks to Andy for becoming a member again. He must have just renewed tonight. Evening, Maze, how are you? Stu, what do you think about Fergie? What kind of job do you think he's done, mate?
Do you know, I was quite excited when Captain Staunch and the Red, White and Blue crew get brought in to try and see the season out. And again, you hear all this, like the usual kind of Fergie interviews. He says all the right things. He talks with the right sort of passion. And like Ross saying, you thought he was going to come in and maybe adjust a few attitudes, tell people what it's really about to play for Rangers. And he probably has done that. But I don't think he's really been able to get the tune he wanted to out of this group over the end of the season. He's probably more disappointed with that. I don't think he's maybe, if he was ever in line to get it, I don't think he's been able to get the results to justify becoming the first Rangers manager under the new ownership. But it could have been a lot worse given the way the results were. But has he only got like a 50% win rate? Am I making that up, or is that kind of right?
Probably a bit on the right tracks, to be honest, mate.
Aye.
Aye.
It's not great, but in the context of the season, then not terrible, I guess.
Mitch, Stu's talking there about him, Fergie coming in and adjusting players' attitudes and stuff like that. And don't get me wrong, in his pressers, he says he's done that. It's the one thing I wanted for him was teaching these players what it was all about to play for Rangers. Do you think he has actually done that, though?
Do you know, I think it's a hard question to fully quantify when you're on the outside rather than being on the inside. I think you can see the youngsters seem to respond really well to Barry. Like those players that are 23 and under in the squad. They seem to see him. I'm not saying like it's like having your dad cheer for you on the sidelines or anything, but you can see there's that mutual respect of Barry's been here, seen it, done it. For some of the older players, let's be honest, the ship's probably sailed in terms of course correcting attitudes because they're too set in their ways. They're 10 plus season pros now. But the youngsters seem to kind of, you look at players like Raskin in the team, you look at the likes of Sterling when he was playing there before the injury, you look at the likes of Curtis in the team, Iggy, you know, you seem to see a bit of you look at the weekend there, prime example, the players with pass marks were all the young players. And that's, to me, it can't be a coincidence at that point that the youngsters seem to get it.
Right.
But I think when you're trying to measure up the job that Barry's done, I think you'd have to probably, the fairest assessment for me would be a 6 out of 10. And I think part of that is he's won the big ones, he's won the Old Firms, he's won the Fenerbahce games, and domestically it is hard to G players up for games that realistically we all know mean buttons at this point. But equally, that's also the players' own doing that these fixtures mean buttons to them. So it's hard to say. I mean, it's not a shipwrecking appointment, and Scotty will tell you, I was one of the first ones to be quite vocal, like in the chats and stuff. Of I thought it was an absolutely humming appointment at the time, and I would say, would anybody else get a better tune out of what was currently there in the overall situation? Probably, but would they have cost the current ownership the wage that Barry does? Probably not.
Aye, true, much true. Ross, Fergie went to, let's speak about his Europa League campaign first. We'll get to Parkhead once we've done a whip run on us, boys, but he put out a special one. You know, like, I think if there was a time you thought he was in contention of getting the job, it was then. You know, when you're looking at kind of them 3 results that he's managed.
Absolutely.
That's no mean feat in it, Ross. It's
not, and it's certainly something to have on your CV, regardless of whether you're of the opinion that Josie's on the downward. That's a point to be made. But to have to beat a team of that quality with the team that we've been speaking about, that they've essentially phoned it in. Now, we know they do show up in Europe, but they were never expected to go and win the Europa League. So if you went to Fenerbahce and got a draw, and then see if we get put out in penalties, you could go, well, do you know what, we get put out in penalties because we get beat by a team that's got better players than us. Fenerbahce, we know they've got a bit of an older squad, but they still get top players. We know they do. But probably at that point, the biggest red flag was the fact that we couldn't see the game out in 90 minutes after giving ourselves such a good advantage in the first leg. I think people forget in the first leg we could have won that by 4 or 5 quite easily. We missed some great chances, and then the second leg, we really come close to shooting ourselves in the foot, and that's being more pessimistic. Obviously, going through in penalties was outstanding, and then we got what I think was probably the hardest tie out of them in Bilbao. And you don't want to play the paranoid thing, but I think the second leg against Athletic Bilbao kind of showed that they're maybe the favourites for it for a reason. But like I say, the Fenerbahce result at the time, you look at it and go, yeah, of course he's in contention. He proved that he had a bit of the tactical awareness. I think that was something that I think he needed to get credit for. He got it tactically spot on, but I think that after that's the case, Bilbao was a little bit more of a disappointment.
Stu, what do you reckon about obviously first leg could have finished 5-1 quite easily, given the goals that were disallowed and stuff like that and everything that went against us in that sense. Second leg, parked the bus, didn't quite pay off, but we got through. What was your take on the Fenerbahce over the 2 legs? Do you think we deserved to get through? And what did Fergie actually achieve in the grand scheme of things?
I think we absolutely deserve to go through, especially after the performance in the first leg. The second leg, we knew we were going to be up against it and everything like that, and we still get through in penalties. I don't know. I don't know if it really achieved much in the long run. Obviously, it's good for us to reach the latter stages. It's good for kind of coefficients next season and everything, but I think it was a highlight out of what's going to be ultimately a kind of fruitless season. Do you know what I mean? It's something to look back on and go, well, that was a highlight, that was a good bit. Remember we did that, the special one got put out. Him and Barry having his wee kind of having their wee war of words and their posting pre-matches and things. That was good, but and then obviously we got a good Old Firm result not long after that as well. So I think really his stock was riding high then, but I think it was just all a bit too much. And Ferguson himself's been the first to say it's easy for these players to go up for these games. Like, these games take care of themselves, and it's your bread and butter that they've really not pulled through for him. And I don't really think it's a lot of his fault, to be honest, either. I think he's done the best with what he's got, but I don't really know if he achieved very much in the grand scheme of things.
Aye, that's a fair assessment, mate. Mitch, what about you? Fergie versus a special one.
It was staunch over style. I think that's how the best way we can put how the first leg went. They just went in there, bulldozed the place with staunch. But equally, I think putting a serious head on it for a minute, like I think the first leg in Turkey, we probably weren't as good as we think we were on the night. It was more that Fenerbahce were as poor as they were on the night. And I think there was a couple of things in play, that kind of new manager bounce, new experience of a new manager in Europe, and Thursday nights under the lights, it is what it is. The second leg, we were on game 5, game 6 under Barry's tenure, give or take. Once again, the new manager bounce stopped. And then tactically, we were all over the place. The players were a bunch of basket cases, as they are at the best of times. And we very nearly made the situation far harder for ourselves than we had to.
Mm-hmm.
It was great that we got through in penalties, but we shouldn't have had to have got to penalties holding, a three-goal cushion. Shouldn't need to get to penalties when you've got that level of lead going into a second leg. It's all fair and well to lose that second leg 1-0 or whatever, but to open the door that far open, that we find ourselves not only in extra time but then pens, that speaks volumes to that's an us problem, not a. And I think Barry has to hold some of the blame for that as well.
Right.
But I think kind of when you look at the highlight reel of Barry's time, I think it still comes down to Hearts in the right place, but probably underqualified. And I think not after you, mate.
Oh, sorry, mate. And I mean, see, coming back onto like what did we achieve, and we were thought about obviously getting through in that European style, and like you're saying, we shouldn't have been in a position where we were having to see out additional time, and but everybody kind of looks back at it as if, well, that was a highlight of Barry, but was that not? I know that record's since been burst, but at the time, was that not the first time that we'd be beaten at Ibrox in 4 games consecutively in, God knows, like was it 100 odd years? I know it's
a
since
long,
been
long
burst as
time.
well. But it depends what you're looking at. Like most people think of like, oh, he didn't be able to get that far. But at the same time, it's also we also gained an accolade that we probably didn't want at the time either, because that was 4 games in Ibrox in a row.
It's been a real laugh for records this season for us, hasn't it? We've broke every record that you don't want to break.
Aye, it's not half. Mitch, feel free to come back at Ross after he gave his answer on us, but you said something about the Ferguson managerial bounce. Ferguson managerial bounce. Ross, I don't think Fergie got a bounce at all. Would you agree with that?
I don't know, to be honest with you, but like Mitch, I thought put it perfectly, and
aye.
It was staunch. It was literally going in and going, this is without swearing this a PG show, but he basically went in and went, this is Rangers you're playing for. Have a bit of respect, have a bit of pride, understand it. The same way that he did as a player, that he had a notorious reputation for, getting in people's faces and telling them it. The first game at Kilmarnock, we were 2-0 down after 20 minutes, and he had to hook somebody to basically try and get his point across. And I don't understand why. I don't understand why players don't. I don't know why they don't take their job seriously. When you're getting paid 30 grand a week to show up and perform when you're playing against teams that you're better than, I've never understood that. I can't get that. Some days I don't know. Maybe I just get pride in my work. I don't know, but I don't know how you can say he didn't get a bounce to an extent. I do get why you say he didn't, but he's the first manager to go to Parkhead and win since Steven Gerrard. Do you know what I mean? And he's a temp. He's an interim, and he went to Parkhead and won. Clermont couldn't do it. Van Bronckhorst couldn't do it. Michael Beale couldn't do it. So I don't know. Is that a bounce, or is that just he's gained something out of the circumstances that maybe Celtic phone it in a bit, or was it just the luck of the draw on the day we were due to get one? Perhaps. I don't know.
Mitch, I'll come back to you on it, because speaking about the managerial bounce, right? It's who won the first match 4-2 away to Kelly, and then Motherwell beat us 2-1 at home.
Barry's bounce, I would have said, was probably more like bouncing a medicine ball than it was bouncing a ping pong ball. And I think the Kelly result, we have to get apart that over here because he'd been in the door, 36 hours. You know, there's limited things you can do with literally one training session, if that. But I think what the players responded to, and again, I highlight the young players that night. Those players that night seen a bit of passion from a manager on on the sidelines. And Scotty will tell you, I hate hearing the word passion coming out of Barry's mouth because I've heard it about 3 million times since he's been in the door. But sometimes that's what the youngsters need when the chips are down. Somebody to be barking some instruction at you, getting the crowd behind you. That was an away game that sounded like a home game.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because Barry had everybody up on their side, everybody up on their feet. Yes, he had to make a harsh call, and we can argue, was it right to take NCL off? Was it right to take Proper off? Who was the right person? Either way, somebody was coming off.
Aye.
Because at the back, it was like the blind leading the blind leading the blind. It was like playing tag in the dark. Don't worry, Scott, we'll find you in the dark. Don't worry, son.
Aye.
Like, but it was like the blind leading the blind. The game after, I don't know if that was, you'd call that the blip, but then you go the big game, the acid test games of the Europa League games where he'd been in the door for just over a week at that point. He had time to work with the players. It's the first big spotlight occasion of the current coaching staff. We ride the high of that game, you go into the Old Firm game, again already on a high from the result before. It kind of gives that artificial feeling. Then as much as the home leg against Ferner, we balls that obviously in normal time, we still got through, so you've kind of got that synthetic high at that point where everybody kind of goes, great, cool, we qualified, but nobody goes, this is under the microscope because how did we get into the mess of needing to go to penalties? Because all of us, and all 4 of us sitting here and everybody else watching it, we were all of the same opinion. We're all of us just get caught up in the lovely moment of we've went through to the next one. Because that's what we care about as fans, that we went through to the next one. Doesn't matter how, doesn't matter if it's by hook, by crook, doesn't matter if you've hoofed the keeper in the balls to put one in the bottom of the net. All that matters is that you got through, and that's what we did. And rightly, we all celebrated that. And I think that, though, the performance was when the wheels started. You started to see the wheels fall off of Barry's overall plan. Because you start to see the same types of goals being conceded, the same things over set pieces. You start to see things like that over the course of the next 3-4 games that follow. And at that point, either we're saying it's a tactical issue or the players are thick as mints.
Aye, definitely.
I don't believe they're all thick as mints, just a few.
Stu, the board appointed Ferguson, in my opinion, to bring a club back together, a club and the fans back together. I think they achieved that, and I think he's probably his crowning achievement for me, even though it was, as John Adams says, in a game it meant nothing. To an extent, I agree with that, but beating Celtic 3-2 at Parkhead for the first time in about 4 years or something, that's no mean feat. Ross says, come on, couldn't do it. Gio couldn't do it. Beale couldn't do it. Ferguson done it. I think that's going to be highlight his time at Rangers, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I don't know, I know there's a lot of young guys now who can only remember so far back, and if they're watching older times, they're watching it on YouTube and things. But see, for me, seeing Barry Ferguson at the side of the pitch in the Old Firm game, and Rangers have totally went out and ran over them and bossed it, and you're watching Ferguson celebrate, and you're watching all the old Rangers heroes celebrate. Do you know what? That'll be a highlight for me, memory-wise. I thought that was class. I had a great day that day. I loved watching it. I loved seeing it. And when things are going good for Barry, that's the moments when you're tuned in just for the post-match, just to hear his reaction and just to hear a bit of pride in the kind of old way of Rangers thinking that is sorely missed these days. And I think what you're saying about Barry was brought in to bring a bit of Rangers sentiment, that kind of the Rangers values, just among the fans, if not the players, just to kind of bring everybody, crowd them in. I think that was something that you're quite right in saying that it was an active part of the decision making, and I think that's given a bit of a shine. Results being what they are and things like that, it could have went better for them. But if nothing else, I'd say that's definitely been a positive result that the board may or may not have deliberately appointed them for.
I think that was very well summed up, Stu. Very well summed up.
Thank you, mate. Yes, man.
I think sometimes when you're in the mess that we were in when Barry came in, and
We're still
let's be honest, but we feel a wee bit nicer. We feel a wee bit nicer.
Aye, because he take
No, what? Aye, but no, we don't feel that much
not here,
nicer.
you don't feel any better. We're still
Just
hungry.
wait a minute, Hen.
No.
Let me get there. Aye. Look, jeez, put your hearing aid out for a minute. But no, I think the where I'm going with that is when Barry came in, there was a lot of anger, vitriol, everything in the stands towards Clement, and I don't necessarily think Clement was the full problem, but I think he'd went as far as he could with the current crop.
Aye.
And I think that's become apparent with the fact that it's not like Barry's come in here and scooshed it. That way, like, he's still watching us chuck two goals in first before we start.
Like a scoosh reference, that was great.
But I've got plenty of references. If you think the joke at the start was bad, I've got plenty more there. But I think in terms of what Barry and the team have done is probably glossed over what has been an absolute steaming pile of nonsense this season. But we've had some Old Firm victories. We've had the Europa League progress. We've had some nearly moments there as well where probably the stands and on the pitch feel a little bit more in unison than what they were, because let's be honest, when Barry came in, the stands and the pitch could have been two different, they were in almost two different postcodes at that point. Things were that bad. And I think, to Barry's credit and the team, that's what they've done. And again, sometimes when you're in a situation that we were with sacking a manager under those circumstances, sometimes you don't need the most qualified guy. Sometimes you just need the guy to pop in. And that's, Barry can never come in with the airs and graces of, this is my job to get. If he's got to give the public sound bites that I reckon I'm going to get this, or I could get it. But in his heart of hearts, he probably knew when he got the phone call, this is my one and only crack at this.
Aye. Ross, Mitch and Stu have kind of talked about Rangers sentiments and Ferguson having his kind of short time in charge. Are you happy it's happened?
I think that it needed to happen. The point that was made, and it was a phrase that was used, that's been used in this, and it was used by Philip Clement a lot, was synergy. He wanted to rebuild the relationships between the fans and the players, and he used it quite a lot. And I think we've seen a failed attempt at it earlier on in the season when we played St Johnstone in the Cup.
Very much so.
And they were jumping about with the support at the end of the game. And I understand why you're trying to do it, but it looked a little bit like virtue signaling to me.
Mm-hmm.
The way to build a relationship between the fans and the club and the players is to go out and give 100%. If you do that, I think you get more leeway, even if results don't go your way. I think you get more from the support. I really do believe that. I think that we're a support that, not to say we don't like getting beat, we hate losing, of course we do, we're the worst support in the world for getting beat, but when you see players trying, and if they're not good enough, that's different. And I don't think these players are good enough, and they don't try. Something I want, the thing about Ferguson, and Stu made a great point, talking about him on the touchline, giving us that feeling again of him being the leader. I want to make a comparison, and you really said it made me really think. It took me back, and just forgive me for a minute here. It took me back to 2002, and being 9 years old and watching Barry Ferguson single-handedly drag Rangers through the Scottish Cup final of 2002, the Lovingkrans final. And everybody remembers Peter Lovingkrans scoring, but Barry Ferguson in that game dragged us kicking and screaming to the end. He was the leader. And I think Barry, maybe in his heart believe that if he could be that leader off the park, the same way he was on the park, players would respond. But the difference is now is that we're at a stage and we have a group of players, and football's changed as well, where I don't think as many players respond in that same way anymore. I just don't think it happens anymore. I don't think it's the same reason why I think Alex Ferguson would struggle to get a tune out of players like that, because they just don't respond in the same way anymore to, if you want to call it the hairdryer treatment. I don't think they respond to it anymore. It's just it's different. They are too, I mean, I don't like to get woke. Things are getting woke and all this nonsense, but they're too soft. And for guys that are paid the amount of money that they're paid to basically do the bare minimum of what's expected from them, I think it's ridiculous. That's just a personal opinion, and I think Barry believed that if he could turn up there and give them a bit of the hairdryer treatment, they would respond, and they haven't, because they're just guys that don't have it in them to respond in that way. It's difficult to say. I don't think he ever believed, unless he pulled an absolute miracle out of his backside, you would have to give him a reason to not give him the job. I think if he wins the Europa League, you basically need to say to him, well, we don't have a reason to not give you the job. Do you know what I mean? But I think unless that was going to happen, but the players didn't have it in them to pull that out anyway, regardless of who the manager was. So he was on to hiding nothing. But what he has done is, I think he tried to give the synergy back. It leads me back to the first point I was trying to make, is that Barry Ferguson's a guy that a lot of our support relate to. Some people don't like him because of his post career stuff, in the media, and that's fair enough. But Barry Ferguson loves Rangers the same way that we love Rangers. Barry Ferguson on the touchline would do the same thing that we would all do. And that's why I think the board could go, well, at least they'll relate to him, because the board are under a hell of a lot of pressure. Let's not forget that. Do you know what I mean? They were under major, major pressure. They still are, but I think they've now taken off them with the takeover that we'll probably come on to. So I think they just had to try and do something to save their own backsides. But I feel bad for Barry, because he basically stepped in and, like I say, he's been on it hiding at nothing. But you know what? He's got moments that he'll treasure forever. He can say, "I managed Rangers and won at Parkhead. I beat Jose Mourinho," and it's probably a little bit selfish, but nobody can take that away from him, regardless of what happens.
100%, mate. 100%. Barry brought in a backroom staff, and he brought in Alan McGregor, he brought in Billy Dodds and Neil McCann. Now, part of the kind of the chat about Ferguson is his backroom team are part of his job performance. So this Rangers sacked their goalkeeping coach, I think it was Colin Stewart, if I remember rightly.
Aye. He survived about 27,000 managers.
And they took in Alan McGregor and gave him that job. So, Stu, can you see any of these guys staying, or is there any of them you would like to stay? Personally, I think McGregor's a Rangers goalkeeping coach from now until he's told by the club no going forward, until he's let go or something. I think that job's his personally. But what do you make of Dodds and McCann and Griggsy?
So I think each and every single one of them will go when the takeover happens. I don't think we'll see any of them here next season. Would I have some of them there? Absolutely. I think it's something that we've probably had missing from previous backroom coaches, where you've got guys who have worked at Dundee's, other kind of teams that are kind of cemented in the Scottish grassroots players. The guys who have either come up through the leagues in Scotland, know the leagues in Scotland, have spent, if they're not from Scotland, they've spent all their playing career in Scotland, and they know how to play in the league and how to win the league and how to get a point.
Yeah.
And I think they fundamentally are really good coaches, but they've maybe not had bigger jobs where they've been able to kind of cut their teeth properly. So I think fundamentally they'd have a good knowledge of Scottish football, which we will need next year. But I think that's probably quite a tight team. All these guys have played together as players. They've won things together as players. Obviously, there are different age groups. But I think if one of them go, they'll all go. Which is maybe not the right thing. I would like to see some of them just to kind of maintain what they've started mentality-wise with the players that they've got. Because we might not move a lot of our players on immediately. that aren't cutting it at the moment. But I think it would be good to keep some of them just for a kind of local SPL or Scottish Premiership knowledge, or players that are up and coming, the grassroots football in Scotland. But I think all those guys will come in as a team and they'll leave as a team.
I think if you look at it, Stu, let's see, the set pieces, Billy Dodds is in charge of them. We've been much better attacking set pieces and defending set pieces under Billy Dodds if he's the one that's solely in charge of free kicks, corners, etc.
I think, is it not him and Shirai?
Maybe.
I'm pretty sure it's him and Shirai that are doing the set pieces, because
I'm only
it's
saying
part
that,
of what Shirai was brought in for.
Right. I'm only saying that because there was a Billy Dodds corner scored in one of the games. It's his set piece routine, and all the pundits and stuff in BBC backed it up. Neil McCann, tactically, since we've been to this back five, we've been hoaching going forward. We've been absolutely pathetic. Obviously, with the joy of Parkhead, with the Fenerbahce away game, but I struggle to find a game in amongst that where his formations worked. Mitch, I'll come to you. If you get any no-name thoughts?
I would probably keep McCann. McCann is the most qualified out of who's there currently. Experienced in the league, he did pretty well at Dundee. Despite what Doug's piping off in the comments, he was pretty well liked as well at Dundee by their fans, and actually pretty well respected for the work that he'd done over in Dundee as well. And he walked into Dundee when Dundee were in a complete and utter bin fire at the time. He'd done some firefighting, kept them up, done what he had to do with them. And he's done that twice, I think, with Dundee. But he's stepped into the bridges when the fire was at its peak and he needed to come in to help them. I think Billy Dodds, I love Billy Dodds, like, he's a guy I grew up with watching, guy I loved watching, and scored some big important goals for us. He's probably yesterday's man now. He's been great between now and the end of the season. Could I maybe see him staying in like a consultancy type role? Like where he maybe comes in a couple of days a week to help out? Possibly. But I think things like the goalkeeping coach, McGregor could potentially come back. Just a instant. Thanks, Doug. Like you can put transfer market down for a minute. Like but he's sitting there like I think going back to my point before Doug sort of interrupted me, like I think where I was going with that is McGregor. I think there is a possibility that the door would be left open for McGregor to come back if he comes. Doug, shut it before I ask Scotty politely to mute you. Like, but I think
I'm not muting him. This is
but I think with McGregor, like there is probably a job down the road for him if he goes out and becomes a goalkeeping coach elsewhere and earns his stripes, rather than just being handed the keys to the kingdom in his first job. I think go out and show that you are a really good, manager and goalkeeping coach. Billy Dodds again, maybe have him around at a consultancy level. Neil McCann, I genuinely wouldn't mind because tactically he speaks quite well. He does okay, but
he's done nothing with 3-5-2, but Mitch, or 5-4-1 or whatever it is. We've got the attacking.
As it has name above the door making all the decisions just now.
No, but
I think this is the thing. None of us.
When we've not got an attacking style of play, when that's his job.
Mate, we've got no pace to attack anybody with. It's like watching me run down the wing.
Oh Christ, don't.
There's an image for you, PTSD while you're sleeping.
I mean, to that point, we're judging them on a style of play. They're trying to implement a style of play with players that they didn't sign.
That's it. It's kind of operating with two hands up your back, and you've only got a pinky free to Mr. Nugent. I will deal with you later. Like, but I think, in all honesty, I think Stu's right there. With new owners coming in, they're going to. I could see them going down much more down the lines of what.
Well, absolutely buried you up, by the way.
Aye, cheers for that, John. Like, thought me and you were sound, mate. Like, but I think, in all honesty, but I could see us going down more of the model that we've got with Shirai at the moment, which is club coaches, maybe 2 or 3 core coaches that are Rangers coaches, not manager choices. They are purely Rangers coaches. But I would imagine that we're going to see a completely new backroom with Shirai being the only person that stays.
It's interesting. It's interesting. Ross, what's your thoughts? Personally, for me, I think if it's in a kind of set piece type role, I wouldn't mind Billy Dodstein because I think the evidence is there. Griggs, we don't know how he's performed in training. So it's hard to kind of make a call on that. What do you think on the whole backroom team thing, Ross?
I don't know, to be honest. I don't think any of them have really earned the right to stay as much as we like. We like Neil McCann, we like Billy Dodge, and we like Alan McGregor. We do like them because they were great players and they're decent coaches. I think Billy Dodge proved himself as a decent coach at Inverness, but a bit of a basket case as well. Alan McGregor's a funny one that you were saying that you would like him to be a coach, and I know he's never really ever said anything about wanting to be a coach. The thing about Alan McGregor is, and I think you tend to find that with managers who are good players, and I think that's something we found with Steven Gerrard, is that if you're trying to coach players to do things that you could have done naturally, I could imagine it would get quite frustrating. And I understand Alan McGregor's, for what we see of him, he's not the most he's not the most calm person at times. And I could imagine that's something that would perhaps build up frustration as something that he would want his goalkeeper to do that they just can't do. You know, like a lot of the things he done was quite natural. You know, the famous I just put my horn out and saved it, happy days. It's hard to coach these kind of things. So I would think he would probably get quite frustrated. And I get, yes, they're Rangers men and we want you want guys that understand the club, but you want the best coaches.
Aye.
You want the best guys for the job, and we've been a club notoriously bad for jobs for the boys, and it's all right when you get success, but we've had guys. I mean, what did Alec Ray do? You can't say Alec Ray wasn't a Rangers man, and you know within a year you're like he needs to go. What does he do? And
Aye.
we might just be in the same state again next year if things don't go well, and your coaching staff is Billy Dodge and Neil McCann, and if we don't have success, then you go, well, what was the point in keeping them? And I understand that's a hypothetical scenario, but you need to have the best guys for the job. And I think that this is what, if the takeover wasn't happening, I wouldn't be surprised to see some of these guys have maybe been asked to stay around to help. But the fact is, we've got a takeover. There's a completely new set of data analytics, ideas. Adults are coming in, completely different. They're coming in without any preconceptions about the club. They're coming in to try and, we're going to assume that they're coming in to try and make the club successful. So that's not going to be, well, here's a coach that's good, but here's a guy that's not as good, but he won a treble with Rangers 25 years ago. Do you know what I mean? So I think you need to try and take the sentimentality away from it. The difference being is it then makes the support, it makes it harder for the support to buy in because you want guys there that you can relate to.
Well, I'll come round you with kind of one last question on the staff end. If there's going to be a club appointed coach and it's somebody that gets Rangers and all this jargon, what one of them would you keep? Ross, I'll come to you first.
Probably McCann. If I'd got it in my head and I had to keep one, Neil McCann. I think Neil McCann's I want to say gets it because that's not the phrase, but he seems to come across as he understands football better. He understands Scottish football better. I don't know if that's because of his punditry that he spends a lot of time analysing Scottish football, and he's analysed how Scottish football's been, especially over the last 10 years or so. And he understands probably better how to play against, different styles of football that we have here. As very little as there are. Most of them are low blocks, but teams now are playing more attacking football, and I think he understands that more than the others.
Aye, definitely. Stu, what about you, mate?
I'd absolutely agree. I'd keep McCann. Again, just prior to becoming part of the Rangers back team coaching staff, whenever you've heard him on whatever platform he's on, he speaks so well and so knowledgeably. And he talks not just about the player, the style. He's watching his actual kind of breakdown and analysis of the play that's just happened, and he just sounds so switched on. I don't think you get that same level with anybody else who's there. But yeah, I'd agree. Neil McCann. I'd keep him if I had a choice of any of them.
Mitchie, what about you?
McCann. Again, like Ross, gun to the head, it would be McCann, but realistically, probably none.
Aye, obviously, but I'm just saying if there was a club appointed coach just to tick that box, then would it be
I would say
McCann?
McCann, but I would probably, as the box B option, I would rather see Kevin Thompson promoted.
Oh, well said.
K-
That's
KT's only got a contract until the summer.
Well, he can have a nice new one. That's fine.
100%, 100%. I completely agree.
I've got a feeling that he will probably be involved somewhere with the new ownership.
Aye, I think Gordy's taking the piss.
Gordy's going to get both his legs broken if he keeps putting suggestions like that in.
Right, so we'll kind of sum it up. We'll be quickly touching the takeover. I agree with Doug. I'd be taking Billy Dodds would be my guy just for the set piece thing, because you know the set pieces would be dealt with because they've been good. So, Ross, mark it a 10 for Barry Ferguson's interim spell in charge.
3, only because
3?
you get the win at. Yeah, I don't think you can. We've not won. We've not won a home game. He's been in charge for 12 or 14 games. We've not won at home. We've not beat St. Mum. We've been beat off St. Mum twice. Sorry, I tell you. I've been beat off St. Mum twice. We've beat off Motherwell. The only gets the 3 because if you're being pedantic, do you know what I mean? If you want to say if I win at Parkhead automatically gives you a 5, then you get a 5. But I don't think a win at Parkhead gives you leeway for not being able to beat teams at home. Do you know what I mean? I understand that's probably been harsh, but like I say, we've no won at home. And I don't think anything can survive that and say it's remotely good enough. It's even average if you can't win a game at home.
Fair. Stu, what about you, mate? Have you got a nicer number than Ross?
I'd say a 6, but it's a good 6, maybe a 7 once we win on Sunday.
You've been on the bench.
We win on Sunday. If you get 2 wins against Celtic, it's a 10. Do you know what I mean? He's getting a 10. He's getting the job. He's getting everything. If we beat Celtic twice, aye, 2 right.
Getting his own statue.
We like to remain balanced here at Rangers Journal. So you're at a 6, Stu? How? Why?
It's a good 6, a good 6. I think it's hard to argue with Ross's solid 3 with the Ibrox home record. But going back to what we were saying earlier on, I think the appointment, I feel it really was a kind of galvanising move. I feel it's took a lot of the sting and kind of bad feeling out a bit. And again, I think there's a lot of kind of fondness towards Ferguson that I think has cushioned the results and the poor home records and everything like that, what we're talking about. And ironically, before he came in, it was the away record that was the issue. Seems to have flipped that. But it's not been great, and it's one of those ones, a club hero, and you don't like to say it, but the results haven't been good enough at the end of the day. He's not had a lot of time. Against, we said earlier on, a lot of the players are probably not receptive to a Fergie lashing. So I think they've probably done the best they can, but solid 6-ish.
6-ish. Mitch, what about you? Now, going by your player ratings here, we can't give him like a 6.75 or something, mate, right? It needs to be a solid number.
I hate you sometimes. I really do. See, when you come off here, I hope that you stand on Lego. I think, given an honest assessment, probably a 4.
4.
And I think there's a bit of context of it, of results-wise, relatively hoaching. When you take the anomalies of the Europa League and the Old Firm, you put them in box A, cracking highlights, they're nice ones to tell about the campfire in 20 years' time. But when you look at the overall, the bread and butter games been absolutely humming. Keep giving teams 2-goal leads, 2 goals head start. Talk about playing tag, you're it. I think stylistically and everything else, it's been not great. He's basically kind of tried to almost carbon copy Clement tactics to a certain degree. And maybe that's just because that's what's been drummed into the players over 18 months, and it was easier to kind of keep riding the bike going the way we were. But I would say a 4 seems somewhat kind of fair. Doug's maybe fair on the 5 of you know, walked into the bin fire when nobody else was. How many top coaches out there are going to take a gig right up to the end of the season, knowing that there's new ownership coming? So, yes, you're auditioning for a job, but realistically, it's a job that you're probably never going to get.
Aye. For me, I think he's come in. Season was already finished. He progressed as a round further in Europe. He got a result at Parkhead. He's gave his memories, the way I see it. He's galvanised the club at times in terms of bringing that synergy that Ross was talking about to come on. He's brought us all back together. I think he's taken us nicely into the takeover, if that makes any sense, by getting us into quarterfinals of Europa, beating Celtic at Parkhead. If he beats them at Ibrox, I think he's done okay, if that makes any sense. So I'd probably give him a 6. Now, I'm not sitting saying he gets a job and all this. None of that. The time for that's been and gone. The time for that was to beat Bilbao and fix us domestically, and he's not done that. So I think we're all fairly set on, like, thanks, we shake hands, and he goes back to his ambassador role, and his staff kind of go with him. Quickly, we'll just touch upon this takeover. So Ross Parag Marat has been at a club. He's done his tour of Ibrox. I think I put it on last night. I seen a comment on the internet. It was overly staged and all that kind of stuff. A certain message board I found. But it's getting closer. It's getting closer. What do you want to see initially when the takeover happens? You want the manager right away?
I think that's got to be the first thing. Now that we've got the sporting director, the director of football, I think we're now at a stage where we need to start laying down the foundations, because the whole thing has been a disaster. Right. One thing I did quite like was, obviously, you're talking about it was overly staged, how all the tours were cancelled, and pods were apparently saying that other pods from other places were claiming that, you know, they were cancelling tours because the 49ers were turning up, and we should all laugh about it because it's not happening. And then, to be fair to them, they were right, because the tours were cancelled and the 49ers turned up. So, you know, maybe they're closer to Sevco High Command than we think, perhaps. But what do I know? They need to go in there and rip the whole thing apart again, to be honest with you. But like I say, I think we've got the director of football, Kevin Thelwell's in. He was there yesterday as well. So although he's not officially finished with Everton, I think we're at a stage where he's kind of starting to.
I think he's in garden leave. I think he's
got a garden
leave.
On,
and I think it's one of these gentlemanly agreements of they kind of don't want him around for the rest of the season to know targets and stuff. And
if I'm correct, Everton have got his replacement already kind of secured as well, so he'll probably be on garden leave from whatever he's doing and preparing to come into Everton in the summer. So, you know, it's a bit of a kind of chain reaction thing. Greta Steinson, as we've been made aware, has already been talking to managerial candidates as well. You know, Scotty's had lots of videos about potential managers, so get on Rangers Journal, all your socials, and they'll be available for us all to watch. Some of them are really good. Depends. Who do you want? It depends, because we don't really know who we're linked with. It's all really based on the bookies odds and ideas and people saying, I think Gerrard's coming back, or I think Russell Martin's getting out, or blah blah blah. But we don't really know. Honest to God, don't even start me. I'm
heard the name Russell Martin, and I was
like, the last time I was on, we were talking about the only reason I'd be happy is if he brought his wife to model all the tarts and bring her out at half time. That's the only reason I'd be happy with it. If it's not that, I'm not interested.
Other wags are available.
Other wags are available, however, other wags haven't been on page 3 when young Ross was growing up. So, you know, talk about sentimentality. I'm talking about the 2002 Cup final and sentimentality. I'm now talking about Russell Martin's wife, sentimentality.
There were sticky times, eh?
Listen, we were all young and stupid, and I say young and stupid and old and stupid and all. Listen, don't be a player hater. You know what I mean? Don't hate the player, hate the game.
Can you put that hand down, because we don't know where it's been?
That's fine. I'm left on you. In terms of who do I want, I keep putting my hand up now and you make me self-conscious. Who do I want? I mean, I've long been an advocate of Kevin Muscat. I think he ticks all the boxes. I think he ticks do all the boxes. He ticks as many boxes as any other managerial candidate does, because we won't get one that can do everything, because we wouldn't be able to afford them. But I think he brings more attributes of what we need in a manager currently than most of the other people that have been mentioned. But he might pull somebody out of the hat that's completely different. I don't know.
Fair enough. Stu, what about you, mate? Would you want to see if they take over in the beginning, and if you get anybody in mind for the managerial job?
In terms of the manager job, I don't know if I've got MD in mind. I've seen all, you see, we're talking about, obviously, a lot of the rumour mill is basically based on bookies odds. To kind of see the silence, the way they've been doing their business, I kind of like that as well. Do you know what I mean? It's not the pressure. They're doing their business kind of smartly, quietly, in the background.
Professionally.
Yep. Talking about the sporting director, I mean, if you're under any impression that they didn't say to the current board, like, that's your man, go and get him. Do you know what I mean? So I think they've done it that way. They're starting to kind of ease themselves into it early. I really don't know how we'd take. I don't know how I feel about the Gerrard thing. There was a good feeling about the club when Gerrard was there, and he was able to bring the team on, get it in strides quickly because of where the team were. But really, 1 trophy in 9, I don't know if you get a second chance at it. For 1 trophy in 9, albeit it was a big one. Do you know what I mean? We needed that one that you got, but generally, I don't know if his previous record of success merits him another chance. Kevin Muscat, I did like him at the time. I actually thought we would have went with him instead of Clement. The only thing with Muscat now, I don't know how he personally feels about. No, you've turned your nose up at me once for that clown, and look what he did for you. Would he now come as the second time we're coming about cap in hand? Or I know we patched it the first time.
It's different people now.
Maybe then, maybe.
Do you know what I mean? That's what I just thought about it. I thought he might look at it and go, well, do you know what? See, the people that knock me back, they're not there anymore.
Maybe then.
I understand if somebody tells you you're not wanted, and then you go with somebody else, and he doesn't work out, and you'd be kind of going like, well, do you know what? I'm not interested. But to say he wouldn't be, I don't think he wouldn't not be interested to be the face of a completely. It's going to be a revolution. I think it's going to be revolution, not evolution. And if he could be the face of that, then I think that's quite an attractive proposition, regardless of what's happened in the past.
I done an interview earlier on, lads, and it was about Kevin Muscat. It's getting released tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. And it was a boy called Sasha Plezani, who's basically the face of Australian football over there. He's interviewed Kevin Muscat a stupid amount of times, and the door's not shut on Kevin Muscat coming to Rangers. It's not shut. Mitch, what about you, mate? Same question, pal.
Do you know what? I think the manager appointment's going to be somebody that none of us have heard of in terms of like in the bookie odds and anything like that. And I think to give credence to that is when it came to Kevin Thelwell coming in, you know, when everybody was talking about who is going to be the next sporting director, not one person mentioned the name Kevin Thelwell. Mm-hmm. Nobody mentioned it. Nobody in mainstream, nobody across fan media. It was done swiftly, efficiently, quietly. Boom, here's your man. And I've got a funny feeling that the managerial process is probably going to be very similar. We could all shoot 20 different names between us. And of the 20 people, it's probably likely to be none of them. Mm-hmm. Because all the recruitment we've done, even going back to the likes of Clement, going back to Coppin, when Clement first came in, nobody knew it was Clement until, maybe the day before he was officially appointed. And that was only because, obviously, the only way you can get into Glasgow if you're abroad is coming in through the airport. That was literally the only reason the press knew it was Clement, was because he came in through the airport. We've been really, really good at keeping the shop shut in that front. And I think the managerial appointment's going to be something quite similar. That we'll not know anything until we need to know it. But I think when the takeover happens, ideally, I'd like to see the manager in place within a fortnight.
Who does Mitch want, though? As a Rangers manager?
Well, I want Urs to ask the question he was going to ask, because he had his hand up.
Do you know what? Talk about something you might not see coming. Mark Warburton, the money era.
Mute him.
I'm about to kick him off.
He's already kicked himself off.
Aye,
No, I think if you ask for a name, I could give you two. I wouldn't mind Papson and I wouldn't mind Will Still.
fair.
And I think the Will Still door might be a wee bit more open than we think, and that's obviously just due to unfortunate circumstances it has in.
Aye. That's what the boy Chris told me on the. So we've done a Will Still interview. I've got Liam Rosner. I don't see a point in releasing that. He signed a new 3-year deal just like minutes after I completed that interview with Strasbourg. Wilfred Nancy would be my pick. Kevin Muscat. I've done Henrik Rydstrom, Papson. There's Hunners. Bo Svensson was the one I done earlier on. I'm still trying to find somebody for Nutsing. But that'll kind of wrap us up, boys. The Kevin Muscat interview will be out tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, folks. So please like and subscribe to us. Ross, thanks for coming on, mate.
Pleasure, always a good one. Thank you.
Stu, nice to see you. Thanks for coming on, pal.
No problem, mate.
Mitch, cheers, pal.
It's nice to see the other two boys. It's alright seeing you.
I know.
Lovely talking, Mitch. Lovely talking.
Always
Well,
a pleasure, Stu.
We'll maybe get a copy report episode done sometime, Mitch.
Well, I mean, if you can find time to put a date in your diary for me. I feel like the bridesmaid, no the bride hen.
I've been asking you bloody weeks.
Excuse me, I've made 3 different suggestions.
I know.
Can your phone do this, Scotty?
Aye. Ejectocito, mate. Right, anyway. Thanks for joining me, gents, and we'll be
And
back.
don't forget to check out our sponsors. Off to the match I go.
On you go, Mitch, you do it.
Right, if you put your promo code in Journal10 off all your orders, you'll get 10% off. And don't forget, every night is a Rangers Journal night.
Good night.